Hi, Regular Drews.
Hello and welcome.
Welcome to our 11th
11th
episode.
episode.
Yes. Wow. We are adding them to the bank, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be discussing Stay Tuned for Danger, Nancy Drew files.
Yeah, case number 17.
Well, aren't you a regular Nancy Drew?
We sure hope so, and we hope you are too.
Join us as we talk Nancy Drew cover to cover and click to click.
Welcome to Regular Nancy Drew. Okay, so I guess 3 words.
Okay.
I don't even... soap opera.
Soap opera.
Can that be one word?
Yeah, of course.
Love, romance.
Romance.
Romance. And creeps.
Creeps. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of creepy parts in this mystery that don't even have anything to do with the actual mystery. So, creepy parts outside of the actual mystery itself.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them having to do with Rick Arlen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Most of them having to do with Rick Arlen.
So,
some of the other ones have to do with Dwayne.
So. Let's get into it. Mm-hmm. So, I have to tell you that, I bought this copy of Stay Tuned for Danger, and it is brand new.
Oh.
The spine was never cracked, and I think I did a good job of not cracking it while I was reading it. And I checked, and it's a first edition.
Oh, nice.
I know that means absolutely nothing, especially for a Nancy Drew file. So it was literally $5. But I'm just excited about that fact.
This was published in 1987. So the fact that it was printed that long ago and still had never been opened. Kind of amazing.
It is kind of amazing. It's a little sad, too. Goes to show you how popular these were. Probably not that popular, but I love them, They hold a special place in my heart.
I think I mentioned on our last episode that I hadn't read any Nancy Drew files before, so this is the first one that I ever read, and I absolutely love it. I'm just so impressed by how good these are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so overall, what was your impression overall of the Nancy Drew file versus Nancy Drew mystery stories?
I loved it. It was very interesting how they, just the approach of her being a little bit older. It's a little bit more dangerous, definitely. So I'm glad we chose this one. It's a great one. Obviously, I've played the game 1,000 times, so I already had a good idea what the plot was going to be. And I'm also very impressed with HerInteractive and how close it was to the story.
Yeah, it's literally exactly the same, aside from a couple name changes, a little bit like some subplots cut out, right? But other than that, it's literally the exact same story. Mm-hmm. Pretty much even down to some of the specific phrases I noticed were exactly the same. A lot of the, scary accidents and plots or whatever is the same. So if you've played Stay Tuned for Danger, the HerInteractive PC game or computer game, then you have basically read this book.
Yeah, they did it justice.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to get into the summary?
Let's get into it, yeah.
Okay, so Nancy and Bess and George are all eating ice cream as Nancy and Bess are about to leave to visit Nancy's Aunt Eloise in New York for a vacation. No mystery, just a vacation. And there's of course, when we start out with a food scene, there's Bess fat shaming. We also end on that too, so it's really great bookends for this.
If you have a copy of this, just go ahead and rip out that last page because all it is just a chance to poke fun at Bess, and you don't need that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of, and I honestly, I don't want to jump ahead or anything. I know we try to save our commentary for after our summary, but literally this scene is absolutely worthless. There's no point to it at all. Mm-hmm. It's basically just we could just start off in New York and it would be fine.
I think they threw it in there just to explain why George wasn't on the trip with them. She has some sort of athletic event that she's going to. It's that same weekend, so she's going to drive them to the airport and then stay home. And we don't see her again until the last page.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Bye, George.
Yeah. So we go to New York.
We go to New York. We get to Eloise's apartment, and pretty much right off the bat, we learn that Eloise has a neighbor named Maddie Jensen, and Bess immediately knows who this is because she is a massive fan of the soap opera that Maddie Jensen stars in called Danner's Dream. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our first departure from the games. It's not Light of Our Love.
Yeah.
Danner's Dream. I have to say that is an improvement, I think, the game made. Light of Our Love is a much better soap opera name than Danner's Dream.
Totally is.
But anyway, it's called Danner's Dream, and Bess is very excited about this. But Eloise tells Nancy that Maddie wants her help investigating strange things that have been happening to her co-star, Rick Arlen. Mm-hmm. But we don't really get into a lot of details about that right away. We don't get that until we show up on set the next day at WWB, Worldwide Broadcasting.
I made a note that Nancy is kind of like, she kind of rolls her eyes at this mystery. Like, oh, I'm here on vacation. I don't really have time for a mystery, but I guess there's no harm in just learning more about what's going on. And maybe I can offer some advice and then be on my way.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was going to say, is that Nancy is like strangely reticent to take on this mystery because apparently she promised herself this trip no mysteries. Mm-hmm. And so she's trying to like stick to that or whatever. I just thought that was funny.
Big departure from the original mystery stories right off the bat there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So they get to WWB as visitors for Maddie. And as they're on their way to her dressing room, they overhear William Pappas, the producer, say, "Nobody breaks a contract with William Pappas. I'll kill him before I let him work for someone else," which is like a quote unquote from the computer game. Well, I guess the game is a quote unquote from this. So,
right.
And they're like, "Oh, okay. Somebody is threatening Rick." And so then we go to Maddie's dressing room, and we basically learn that that's what's happening, is that a bunch of threats keep coming into Rick. Someone poisoned his chocolates with a threatening note. Maddie thinks someone's trying to kill him. And apparently Rick does not take this seriously at all. And that's what's really upsetting Maddie, is because she thinks that this is a really serious threat, but Rick absolutely does not. It's really frustrating for her. And then we do meet Rick. Rick comes into Maddie's dressing room, and he's received another scary, threatening letter with a photograph of him that's like been like scratched out, like his face has been all scratched out in the photo. Mm-hmm. But like, again, he is not concerned about this. He won't let them call the police. And in fact, he makes a comment that he says that he thinks it's probably just William Pappas trying to scare him so that he won't try to get out of his contract with him.
Right.
Oh, we meet an angry Lillian Weiss, the producer on the set.
Or she's the director.
Oh, director.
No,
sorry.
She's the assistant director.
Assistant director.
In the game, she's the director. In this, she's just the assistant director. And we meet the director, but he doesn't really...
Right.
He's not really in a lot of the scenes. He just
stays up in the control room. Yeah. There's really not a lot, I thought, that was like going on with Lillian. I didn't really know what to like remark about plot-wise, but basically she's just a really angry lady. Yeah. She just makes a lot of snotty comments at Nancy all the time, is just angry with everyone.
Everybody's wasting her time, it feels like.
Yeah. So on set, we get to watch a rehearsal of Maddie and Rick going through a scene, and a stage light, breaks off and starts falling to the ground, and Nancy, in what can only be described as a ninja level save, runs to Rick and like tackles him out of the way of this falling stage light. So super dramatic, super impressive, very athletic, very cool Nancy, so she saves Rick's life, basically.
She's almost immediately revered as a hero by all the cast and the crew there.
Yeah, earns her a lot of points. that upsets everybody. Everybody's freaked out by that or whatever. And then we meet another character named Dwayne Casper, who is Maddie's agent. And he runs in. It's like, Maddie, are you okay? And he's all freaked out, and he's really upset with the producers and everything, being like, how could you let Maddie come into such danger? You don't know what good thing you have here or whatever. And he's really frustrated.
Is this when they go to the dressing room?
I think they go to the dressing room, but then Nancy comes back pretty immediately to like investigate the light.
Oh, yeah. So Rick starts flirting with Nancy after this whole light event. Like, oh, dear, you saved my life. Please be my love or whatever. And she's like, actually, I have a boyfriend. And he's like, oh, well, your friend here will do, referring to Bess instead. So he invites them back to his dressing room, and they go. And there's just this really weird exchange where Nancy's like, well, I'm going to go back out to the set and investigate. Bess, do you want to come with me? And Bess is like, no, I'm going to stay here and hang out with Rick. And Nancy like has this weird feeling like, oh, maybe I shouldn't leave Bess alone. But I'm going to. And she just leaves Bess alone with this creepy older guy. But anyway, then she does go back to the stage to investigate.
Yeah, and she looks around and she finds the clamp that was attached to the falling light, and she sees that it has actually been sawed through. So it looks as though this light was sabotaged and that someone actually intended to harm Rick. And so she tells the producers and the director about this and everything, and pretty much they immediately close down the set. They're like, everybody out, and I think William Pappas fires somebody. He does that a lot. And and so like they clear everybody out, and they won't let any non-essential personnel onto the set anymore. But then Nancy is on her way back to the dressing room to go back to Bess, and on her way she runs into Lillian acting super sus coming out of the prop room, and Nancy's like, okay, like hi, or, and Lillian's just super nasty to her. And so Nancy goes into where the door she was coming out of, the prop room, and we meet the prop master. We don't get a super lot about the prop master, right? But apparently he is just this old man. We don't get his name or anything, but I just thought we should remark upon that because of, the massive role the prop master plays in the computer game. Yeah. Nancy looks around, though, and she doesn't really see anything. She talks to the prop master for a little bit, and he says that, like, Lillian wasn't there.
But he was just asleep, so clearly he wouldn't know if someone was there or not.
So kind of unhelpful, but so she leaves and goes back to the dressing room to find Rick and Bess in an embrace.
Oh, I know. Left you alone for 2 minutes, Bess. You're already being groomed by some 40-year-old. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know how old he is.
Surely he's not that old.
I don't know how old the average soap opera star usually is. I don't feel like they're usually an 18-year-old, though.
Well, definitely not that young, but probably, I would say, somewhat young adult. I mean, it depends on the role, right? Like, some people are soap stars for, like, their whole lives, you know what I mean? But I feel like it's a pretty common kind of jumping off point for a lot of actors, too. Okay. So it's, I don't know, it really could be anything across the board. But I know he's not 18. At best, he's probably like 27, 28, late 20s.
Which is too old to be dating an 18-year-old. We don't get their ages at any point or anything that we could use as a benchmark for their ages. But we do know that Bess and Nancy are 18, don't we?
Yeah.
So
potentially 19. They might be 18, 19 of this, but yeah. Still.
I know Bess is an adult officially, as she can make her own choices, but Rick should know better than to, Anyway.
Anyway, we kind of move past that pretty quickly, but Rick does invite them both to go sightseeing with him that weekend. Bess is very excited about this, but Nancy's kind of just like, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it'll be a chance to like keep my eye on you, see if anybody tries to come attack you again.
Right. So later that day, they're back at the apartment, and Maddie comes over for dinner, which we have to talk about this dinner scene in a little bit. But
yes.
But she comes over for dinner, and we find out that she and Rick used to date, And she kind of actually warns Bess off of dating him, kind of saying that he's a love him and leave him type. And you can tell she's very uncomfortable with the idea of Bess going out with him.
Mm-hmm.
And we solve our problem of the set being closed because Maddie gets them onto the set as extras so that they can return to the closed set.
Mm-hmm.
So they go back to the set the next day. They watch another rehearsal. And as Maddie is like reading her lines off the teleprompter during this rehearsal, she screams and faints dead away out of fear from reading a scary, threatening message on the teleprompter. That's basically like, die Rick or whatever. Right. I don't remember exactly what it says, but it's just some scary, threatening message.
Mm-hmm.
Papas fires a bunch of people again. He like fires the person who's in charge of the teleprompter. He also like fires like another person who had access to the teleprompter.
Mm-hmm. Person who had access to the lights. Yeah.
Yeah. He fires a bunch of people. And then I do know like Maddie is really freaked out, of course, by the teleprompter, but Rick like brushes it off. And there's like a scene where he is like, no, let's just take lunch or whatever. I'll buy you lunch, Maddie, or whatever. And Maddie's all like huffy about it or whatever. She's upset because she thinks that Rick's in danger, but he's blowing it off. And she's like, I can buy my own lunch. Thank you, Rick. And so he just takes Nancy and Bess to lunch. But yeah, this book, I think it has interesting transitions because, sorry, I'm trying not to do the compare and contrast, but
that's okay.
in the Nancy Drew mystery stories, it was very much that like one scene, like we would get narrative as to how it led to the other. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Nancy would say, and then Nancy drove to this place, and then Nancy went home, and then Nancy did this or whatever. But we don't get that in this book. This book just kind of has these just like cut like transitions from one scene to another where we don't get any explanation as to how they got there.
Right. The next morning.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the next day, presumably, Nancy and Bess go sightseeing with Rick and his friend Gilbert, who is apparently a cute stand-up comic. And Nancy actually really likes him and kind of flirts with him a little bit.
But she loves Ned. She loves Ned. Yes. So she can't.
She makes a great point to, we reinforce that a lot in this book, that she is in love with Ned and with Ned. But she does definitely remark that she thinks this guy is cute and funny and nice. So,
but Ned probably wouldn't have an issue with it because it's for the sake of the mystery. There's a larger goal here besides just this date. So Ned's fine. Exactly. He doesn't need to know about it, but he would be fine with it. So don't worry.
So they go on a boat tour around Manhattan. And this is when a quote unquote crazy fan runs and tries to push Rick off the side of the boat into the river. And Nancy goes to pull this guy off of Rick.
This is amazing.
She like flips him in the air. I think does like a karate flip.
Yeah.
And pins him to the ground.
I think we just need to read it. Let me... Okay. Leaping for Rick, Nancy and Gilbert grabbed him just in time and pulled him safely back over the rail. Nancy felt a pair of ham-like hands on her shoulders. She turned to face the assailant and delivered a swift kick to his left shin. Then she seized his hand and flipped him head over heels onto the deck. The ship's crew then held him and pinned him against the deck until the ship had docked and the police arrived, followed by a couple of reporters.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
Whew! Listen, this kind of thing is going on Nancy's skill list 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And even later, specifically in the book, she specifies that she knows the ancient art of karate.
Yes.
So, like, wow. That's all I have to say about that.
She's been having her lessons, so.
Yeah, so the police come and they arrest this crazy fan, I guess, and they're fine.
They say that he'd just been let out of a mental hospital a few weeks prior and like really believed that Rick was his character on the show and he was going to quote unquote kill him for breaking Maddie's character's heart. So Nancy sees this and she's just not, Bess is like, oh, it's fine now. We caught the guy. But Nancy's just like, I think that there is still the bad guy out there.
Yeah. So they go to a bunch of different major sites around New York City. And afterwards, they decide to take a walk around Central Park. And as they're walking, a out of control taxi cab suddenly veers towards Bess and Rick, where they're walking a little slightly ahead of Nancy and Gilbert. Mm-hmm. And Nancy is able to run up just in time to grab Bess and kind of yank her out of the path of the cab, runaway cab. And the cab just drives away. And then we find Rick has, like, I guess, jumped behind a bush to save himself from this.
Forget about Bess. Leave her in the road. Just, yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely supposed to be the vibe, is that he just kind of, like, dove and abandoned Bess. Mm-hmm. But I thought it just kind of seemed like, I mean, like, a car's coming at you. You know what I mean? Like, get out of the way. You know, I feel like we maybe should give Rick a little bit of grace in this moment. I would probably panic and bolt too. You know? But
Nancy didn't, though. She kept her cool and saved Bess's life. So
it's true. It's true.
Yeah, Rick is still very much like, oh, it was just a hit and run accident that has nothing to do with these death threats. He just completely, dismisses it.
Right. But Nancy is still not convinced because she thinks, this fan has supposedly been caught, but now we have another strange accident almost happened. Something is definitely still going on.
Mm-hmm. We have this great narration at the top of the Empire State Building where everybody else is having fun and Nancy is just kind of looking down at New York City, thinking about just this, terrible feeling in the pit of her stomach and thinking like, oh, the bad guy, he's down there somewhere out in all these millions of people. The murderer is out there.
I love it. I love it so much. I love these little bits of like drama that we get put in there. And it's so classic. It's just so great. So great. Reasons like that are why I love these books.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then later on, Nancy's talking to Maddie. She's telling her about this accident or whatever and why she doesn't believe that it's over. And we learn that Dwayne also used to represent Rick. And apparently they all know each other from doing Shakespeare together in Oregon like years ago.
Yeah, they all started out as actors together.
Yeah, and that when they moved to New York, Dwayne wasn't getting gigs or whatever, and so he decided to actually open a talent agency to kind of help his friends out and help his friends get gigs. And apparently, he's pretty good at that. So Matt, and we also learn that Maddie is still in love with Rick. She basically admits it to Nancy, and basically Nancy tries to assure her that this thing with Bess isn't serious, and I'm sure, it'll be over. Like, we're leaving soon. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. And that kind of helps her a little bit. But she does ask her how she can get into Dwayne's office because now she's suspicious of Dwayne. Mm-hmm. And Maddie tells her to tell Dwayne that she's a friend of hers, a friend of Maddie's, and that she's an aspiring actress and is new in town, and that Dwayne loves to help people like this, and that if she just tells him that, he'll let her into his office. Mm-hmm. So next day, or later that day potentially, I am unsure. It's unclear. Oh, wait, no, it is the next day because that night, Nancy wakes up in the middle of the night or like 5 a.m. in the morning or something. She has a terrible dream, which is hilarious, by the way.
A stress dream about the mystery.
Yeah, she has a stress dream about the mystery. And she wakes up to find that Bess is missing from her bed. And then she looks out the window and she finds that Bess is just getting home at 5 in the morning, that she must have been out all night with Rick.
And sees them get out of Rick's limo and make out in front of the car. And then they see Nancy watching from the window.
Y'all, these are such different books than Nancy Drew Mystery Stories.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even describe to you. It's so different. Mm-hmm. There's legitimate kissing scenes.
Yeah.
Legitimate kissing scenes. That's all I have to tell you. Mm-hmm. All I have to tell you. For you should read this.
Way more scandalous than our kisses at the airport in Crocodile Island.
So much more scandalous. So much more scandalous.
Oh, also Bess tells Nancy that she thinks Rick is the one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is where Nancy starts to get really concerned about this because she says Bess is falling for this guy or whatever. And she's worried about that because she can tell that Rick is just this massive flirt. And that basically she thinks that Bess is like an idiot, basically, for falling for it. But Bess is kind of ignoring her and is continuing to do her own thing.
Yeah, Bess does not like Nancy saying this to her. They don't get into an argument, but they do have this really tense discussion of oh, you don't know the real Rick. And we'll talk about it later, though.
We will definitely talk about that later. And so then at brunch that day, we learn that Rick dumped Maddie for Lillian.
Oh, wait. We run into Lillian before this, though, don't we?
Oh, at the park.
Yeah, because
right.
Nancy's like, well, I'm up now, Bess.
Right.
Thank you. I'm just up. So she decides to go for an early morning walk before brunch and runs into Lillian, who just kind of randomly finds her in the park and says that she's not really concerned about Rick very much because she thinks that he has it coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she seems to be pretty kind of happy that Rick is like receiving these threats. She thinks it's like deserved and that he deserves to die, basically. Mm-hmm. And then at brunch, we learn that that's probably because Rick dumped Maddie for Lillian. And then like 2 months later, he dumped Lillian after having met her like film friends. And after he started dating one of her film friends to like get into that industry. And so that's probably why she hates him. Probably.
Yeah.
Nancy gets another one of her iconic threatening phone calls at brunch. A waiter comes up the table and says, "You have a call. Nancy Drew, you have a call." And she goes and someone's like, "Stay away from Rick Arlen and make sure your friend Bess stays away from him too." She's like, "Okay." And hangs up the phone and goes back to brunch. Then she goes to meet with Dwayne under an assumed name. She calls herself Diane Elliott and pretends to do what Maddie told her to do, that she's a new actress in town trying to find work. While Bess rings the buzzer and tries to distract Dwayne with, can I just say, she starts to sing. And apparently like horribly, which is it's just like, that's peak Bess. Peak Bess Marvin. But while Bess is doing that, Nancy snoops on his desk and finds several bills from creditors, finds an eviction notice, letters from collection agencies, so just like a bunch of evidence that Dwayne's not doing so hot. We also noticed when we came into his office that there wasn't a secretary. Nancy made a note that there's a big front desk, but nobody manning the front desk. Mm-hmm. So all these clues kind of let us know that, Dwayne's not doing super hot in his talent agency.
And one more departure from the game here. It's not so much in like an apartment building as what it looks like in the game. It does feel more like an office building because he does have a reception area and everything, but he just doesn't have the staff to work it.
Right. So they go back to Worldwide Broadcasting, and while they're walking into the building, they hear / feel a massive explosion. Mm-hmm. And so they go running back to the back towards Rick's dressing room. Oh, we hear a scream. I had to make a note of this. We hear a scream after that explosion that Bess identifies as Rick's. And I just want to bring up just for a second, how does Bess know what Rick's scream sounds like?
I hadn't even thought about that, but I hate the answer.
Does I don't even know. I want to.
She just knows the sound of his voice so well because he's the one that, no matter what he's saying, she can still recognize it.
Yeah, potentially that, or potentially they were doing some other stuff on that night out. All I have to say. So they run back there to Rick's dressing room, and they find that his makeup mirror has been shattered, and Rick comes out and his hands are all cut up and like filled with glass, and his makeup artist is there and she's very upset. She's okay, but she says that the only reason why like Rick's face is okay is because he had a towel over his face because he was wiping off his cold cream. Mm-hmm. So his hands took the brunt of the shattered glass, I guess.
Thank goodness the towel protected the money maker.
But he still goes to the hospital. Paramedics come. They start fixing up his hands, bandaging his hands, and he goes to the hospital. We learn from the fire department that apparently this bomb was attached to a 24-hour timer. So it had to have been set the day before. But this is strange because apparently this is when William Pappas had just closed the set. It was closed down tight on that Sunday. And so Nancy uses this information to rule out Dwayne, because how would he have been able to get on set? It had to have been someone with access to the set, which basically is like Lillian, William Pappas. That's pretty much it.
maybe some crew members, right?
Right. So that rules out Dwayne on our suspects list, and our new suspect numero uno is back to Lillian, I think.
Mm-hmm. Bill Pappas comes out at this point and lets everyone know that he got a call from the hospital. Rick's going to be fine, but they're going to keep him a little while just to make sure.
Yeah. So I don't understand this part. So Nancy is kind of like, she's confused. She's walking around the set. She's like frustrated because she's not making progress on the mystery. And then she kind of has like this moment of clarity where I'm not really sure what we're supposed to understand, but she like realizes something and she grabs Bess and she starts to like run off the set or whatever. And then she runs past Lillian, who says something like, "Oh, figured it out, did you?" It's just like a bizarre moment. And I'm not sure what we're supposed to understand that Nancy has figured out. And it never and we never find that out. Mm-hmm. I don't really understand, but
I took it as like the bad guy did this on purpose so that you would end up in the hospital and then he can target you more easily once you're, in one stationary place. But then nothing really comes of that because they do go to the hospital after this to check and see, is he okay at the hospital? And there's policemen guarding his hospital room. So he's fine. We know that. But that's what I assumed, but it didn't really.
It wasn't super explicit. So I was confused about that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we go to the hospital and there are police outside the door, but also Maddie is inside the hospital room at the same time. The police are like, yeah, she was here before we got here. Looks like she's going to be in there for a little longer. And so Bess and Nancy got to peek their heads in, and it's basically Rick professing his love for Maddie, and Maddie being like, "Oh, Rick, my sweet angel child," or whatever. And
I've always loved you. Yeah.
And so they get back together, and Bess runs away in tears. She's heartbroken, and Nancy is like, "Well, saw that coming." Eventually she does go after her and she finds her outside on a park bench. And Bess, I think, does pretty well with this rejection ultimately. I think she's a little upset and a little miffed, but she doesn't seem to be defeated, distraught. Yeah. She moves on with her life just fine. And so they head back to the apartment. And this is where we get our bomb scare.
Yeah, we get a ticking package in the mail.
There is a ticking package left for Nancy, and Nancy doesn't open it. She immediately takes it outside, sits it on the curb, I guess. I don't know how that is supposed to help in a situation where it's a bomb, but I guess it's better than it being inside. I don't know.
Yeah, so tells Bess, go call the police, and then a bomb squad arrives. They open the box and realize it's just an alarm clock in there that had been ticking, and some threatening note about the next one will be real or something of that nature.
Right. And at this point, I think her Aunt Eloise starts to get really scared. Even Bess starts to get freaked out a little bit. But they go back to set the next day. And
I was going to mention Ned's phone call.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Aunt Eloise is like, "Oh, you should go home. I'd never forgive myself if something did happen to you. So why don't we just get you a flight?" And Nancy's like, "Well, we were supposed to leave the day after tomorrow anyway. Let me have tomorrow and we will, if I don't solve the mystery then I'll go home. But first I'm going to call Ned because I just need some emotional support." And Ned just the sweetest phone call. He's just really, really supportive. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah, we get a couple phone calls to Ned in this book. And I think I don't know if this is the second call or is this the first call?
I think this is the second one because he even says, "Wow, twice in 1 week. What
twice
did I do to deserve this?" It's so cute.
So cute. Heart-meltingly cute. But yeah, so the next day they go back to the set, and at this point, Bess is like embracing her like extra status. She is like, now I'm going to be an actress, and I'm going to have this tape from my mom's taping this episode so that I can use it to, show like casting agents and stuff about my skills. And she's so excited because she gets to like hand Maddie a like paper to sign at the hospital in the scene and whatever. But
Nancy's like, whatever makes you happy. Focus on that instead of Rick. Cool.
Yeah. And then it's like a dressing room, Rick's dressing room.
Rick has like a temporary dressing room set up on the other side of the building because obviously his is unusable. So they're just kind of like in a hallway or something. It sounded like, but his makeup artist is there doing his makeup, getting him ready for the show.
And she goes to she like dropped something in the sink full of water, or
They called it a makeup stick, and I don't know what that means.
I guess a stick of makeup.
I assume foundation or
Right,
something,
yeah.
and uncapped it. And when she was doing so, it kind of flew out of her hand, landed in the sink, and the droplets of water in the bottom of the sink start fizzing a little bit.
No, I think it's a full sink of water. I
Was
think
it?
the water
Okay.
has been filled up in the sink.
Okay.
Like, I guess for someone to potentially wash their face. Like, I think
I
Rick
wasn't sure about that.
is maybe
Okay.
like about to wash his makeup off or something. And yeah, it starts to sizzle. So apparently it's acid. And this makeup artist, she goes, "Oh, Rick, that could have been your face."
Okay, this was what I was not clear on. I wasn't sure if the makeup itself was the acid or if the water in the sink bowl. Like, was he about to splash that water on his face and it wasn't really water, it was
my God.
acid? Or was the acid, like, somehow in the makeup stick?
Okay, that is a great point. Something I hadn't even considered. I totally thought the acid was in the water, but it definitely could have been in the makeup too. Okay.
I think it's supposed to be in the water. I went back and read it a couple times, and I couldn't tell, so I'm not sure.
Okay, let's see. I found it. Okay, Nancy leaned up against a wall and watched as Kay put some warm water into the sink. She's trying to make jokes with Rick to make him feel better because at this point he's like kind of upset about the explosion. She sighed wearily and picked up a stick of makeup. "Okay, here we go," she said, uncapping it. Then, oops, she cried as the stick slipped out of her hands and fell into the wet sink. Clumsy me. Suddenly there was a hissing noise. The water in the sink began bubbling furiously.
See, it said wet sink. Does that mean a full sink or just like there's some droplets of water from the last time the faucet was running? Is it even a faucet if they're like set up in a hallway?
Kay put some warm water into the sink.
Okay, then yeah, it is a full bowl.
Or some. There's some water in there, but I don't know how much. And then apparently, literally, yeah, she says, "Rick, that could have been your face," which I just think is the most hilarious exclamation. And apparently the acid ate holes into the stainless steel sink. Which, how?
Wouldn't it like eat through the plastic tube on the makeup stick
Yeah.
before it would eat through stainless steel? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get it. But I think it's definitely supposed to be the water and not the stick, because the sink is actually like being affected by the water. Like the makeup stick wouldn't have gotten all over the sink already, you know? So
Okay.
I think
we solved it.
it's supposed to be the water. Using our deductive reasoning skills. Oh man.
Yes. So we have this near miss, and Rick he's fed up at this point. He just walks off set, tells Pappas he's quitting, that he's done. He's off the show now, and he leaves.
And Pappas is like, "Nobody walks out on William Pappas."
And he immediately calls the director over, tells him, "Hey, Rick is no longer on the show." And the director's like, "Well, what do you want us to do about it?" He's like, "Well, you're the director. Figure it out. Figure out how to proceed with shooting the show without your main character."
And the director's like, "Okay, we'll shoot the hospital scene with Maddie." Lol. So after that day on set, that dramatic day, Nancy goes back to the apartment and she immediately gets a phone call from Lily. Or not immediately. That night she gets a phone call.
Did they go to dinner first? And the French
I might
waiter?
have skipped that. Oh, no, I skipped the waiter part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they go to dinner and realize that the waiter is wearing some sort of disguise, and they make a little joke about it. And he tells them that he's doing it because he's an actor, an aspiring actor, and he was doing it to prepare himself for a role. And Nancy kind of gets it in her head, like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe our bad guy was in disguise as well." And it, the wheels start turning in her head.
Yep, she's like, "Aha! I've solved it. I understand. He was in disguise." Which is like, okay, all right. Really? Like,
sure.
We couldn't have assumed that before. I don't know. All aren't bad guys. Don't they just wear disguises? That seems like something that a Nancy Drew from the Nancy Drew mystery stories would have just assumed. Of course, the bad guy is using a disguise, but took Nancy a little bit to get there, I guess, this time. All right. They go back to the apartment, and Nancy gets a call from Lillian, who asks her to meet her on the set at 6 a.m. the next morning before rehearsal. And Eloise is really upset. She's like, "You're not about to go back to that set after all this stuff has happened and after, like, somebody like that. You think that Lillian is the bad guy, basically. You're not going to go to the set at her invitation. Are you crazy? And Bess is like, yeah, Nancy, what are you doing? Don't go. We're leaving tomorrow or whatever. But Nancy is like, I have to see it through. I am so close or whatever. And so she does.
Don't worry, I know karate.
Don't worry, I know karate.
We don't figure this out.
So she meets Lillian on set, and Lillian says that she has started to get threats too. Because, and she pulls out a bag and she shows Nancy all of these different disguises that she has found around set and in the prop room.
Which explains why she was being weird about being in the prop room previously. She'd stashed the stuff in there because it's the one place no one would notice if it was out of place.
Right. She shows her like mustaches, like hats, like stagehand outfit or whatever outfit. I don't know, stagehand uniform, whatever. And she shows Nancy the threatening note that she received about like, are you trying to blackmail me, Lillian? And
then the lights go out. Yeah.
And we are interrupted over the intercom by, drumroll, Dwayne Powers. Just kidding. Dwayne, what's his name? Casper.
Casper.
He comes over the intercom, and apparently he's in the control room, talking down at them. And he basically...
And he has a gun.
Oh, yeah, he has a gun. Jeez Louise. And he goes
1987.
on this long tangent about how Rick has killed him.
Stole his career, stole his woman because Maddie should have been his, and the job that he has should have been his. And way back in the day, they were all in Romeo and Juliet, and he really wanted to be the Romeo to Maddie's Juliet, and Rick got that part anyway. And had that not happen, a whole timeline of events would have been different, and he would be the star of the show, and he would be in love with Maddie, and all these batshit crazy things.
And Nancy tries to like reason with him, be like, Dwayne, this is real life. This isn't a soap opera. And he goes, hold on. I gotta find it because it's the best line in the whole book. He goes, that shows what you know about life, Nancy Drew. Real life is a soap opera. You'll learn that. Or rather, you would have had you lived. And then he already sealed the doors, didn't he?
Not until Nancy's trying to sneak out.
Yeah, okay. So he seals the doors, and Nancy goes to try to get out. She can't get out, but she finds a smoke machine and turns it on to like fill the room with fog. She tells Lillian to hide, but Dwayne,
Lillian has been rendered completely useless by the
she's
side
like
of this
catatonic.
gun. Standing there, and Nancy like grabs her hand, pulls her into a corner where the fog is thickest, and is like, "Don't move. I'm gonna go deal with this."
But Dwayne comes out of the control room and turns on a fan and is like, "Ha! You thought you bested me, Nancy Drew, but
One step ahead of you.
I have a fan, and I'm going to blow all this smoke away." And as the smoke starts clearing, Nancy is like, okay, I gotta do something before the smoke clears and he finds us. And so right before the smoke clears completely, she jumps on him, tackles him with the gun, and the gun goes off multiple times. Several shots ring out.
It says that the gun emptied itself. So all the shots. Yeah.
All of it. Wow. So then the police, because the police are still here, probably because this is like an active crime scene. So don't ask me.
I thought that Eloise and Beth showed up with the police.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense too.
Yeah, I think Aunt Eloise got nervous about this. She called the police, and then they all show up. Bess, Aunt Eloise, and the police all show up at this exact moment and are able to find them because of the gunshot sounds.
See, you remember these way better than
I just read it last night.
I just get so sidetracked by the karate.
Lillian has fainted by this point. Yeah. She's just passed out in the corner.
But the police are able to come in and take Dwayne into custody because Nancy has him in a hammerlock on the ground.
Go, yes! Nancy Drew!
Yes! Woo! Girl power!
Yes!
And Nancy is fine. Nancy has not been shot. She's not been injured, but a bullet has gone through the sleeve of her jacket.
Singed her jacket sleeve.
Woo! Oh, man. And then so the police are like, okay, just make sure you come down to the station later.
Yeah, but then we don't hear any of this. We don't get her statement or anything. We just cut to them leaving at the airport. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, we'll have to talk about that in a second. But they cut to the airport, and Nancy and Bess are about to board their flight. And then Rick and Maddie show up. Rick has 2 rose bouquets, and he gives one to Bess, gives one to Nancy. And it's like, thank you so much for saving my life. And we find out that he and Maddie are now engaged, and they're going to get married. And Bess plasters a smile on her face and says, congratulations. And then we find out that the flowers are actually from William Pappas.
Yes. Pappas has sent it as a thank you for solving this mystery, and he has actually agreed to kill Rick off of Danner's dream so that he can go pursue his dream of starring in this film that is shooting next week, apparently. So,
and that's our happily ever after. And then we flash forward to being back in River Heights. Nancy, Bess, and George are all eating ice cream again at the ice cream shop. And they're telling George all about their trip to New York and all about Rick and everything that happened. And Nancy asks says something to Bess about her like acting career. And Bess, she says, oh, yeah, well, after that whole experience, now I just realize how hard it is for actors. So I think now, actually, I'm going to pursue modeling. I'm going to be a model. And then they make a comment about, oh, Bess, you're going to go on a diet. You're going to go on an ice cream diet. And that's the end of the book.
Yep, that's it. So like I said, just rip that last page out because we don't need it. Oh, we do find out as well that Pappas did agree to rehire all the people that he fired in the course of everything. Yes. So that was made right in the end, which is good. But
yeah, good job, Pappas. We found out that Pappas is actually a good guy. He just is a little bit of a hothead.
Just has a temper.
Yeah. Oh, well, so that is Stay Tuned for Danger.
Okay, let's get into commentary then.
Right. So we've already talked about the best fat shaming.
I was glad that it was just those 2 instances. We have a few different, meals that we go out to with Maddie or Aunt Eloise. We go to brunch. We go to every meal pretty much, and that doesn't take place. It's only when George is there at the beginning and the end. So,
interesting. I wonder if that is a little clue as to who is the author of the fat shaming. Interesting.
So.
I will say, though, that the entire book is a little bit like making fun of Bess. Yeah. Because we kind of get this whole romance thing between her and Rick, and throughout the whole book, Nancy is basically like,
this is unrealistic.
Not just like this is unrealistic, but like, Bess, you are being like a stupid girl. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't be falling for this. You're better than this. Clearly, Rick is just using you. Why can't you see that? And I just thought that was like, one, totally unfair. Because one, Bess is like, an 18-year-old girl. Like, why is it not okay for her to be interested in going on dates with boys?
Right.
2, she's on vacation in New York City, and a famous soap actor asks her out.
What do you expect her to do?
Fooling yourself if you think if a famous soap actor asked me out and I was single, that I would not be like, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. I feel like Bess's behavior is not only 100% realistic, but like 100% acceptable, right. Like, but Nancy is very like high horse about it, and it's frustrating to me.
Like, you're heartbroken. No, whatever this grown man does is on him. It's not on Bess for not seeing through it at first,
And let your friend have a good time. Yeah. Like, Bess has never like proclaimed that, I don't know. I guess that she did say that she loves him or whatever, but like whatever, like it doesn't matter. Like just let her enjoy herself. Let her be in love. Like maybe she is in love, Nancy. You don't know. Right. You don't know this guy. She clearly knows this guy better than you do. She's had conversations with him alone, at least. Like, you don't know, you know? I just feel like Nancy's being uncool and a bad friend to Bess throughout this whole thing.
She's such a bad friend in this book.
Yeah.
Especially when they first arrive. I had a huge issue with that when they first arrive at the studio and she's going to leave Bess and Rick in the dressing room while she goes and checks out the situation with the Klieg light. And she has this bad feeling and is like, oh, I shouldn't leave Bess alone with him, but I'm going to. And I don't want to imply that like Bess needs a babysitter or anything like that because she can make her own choices. But if you think something's up, you should have stayed. Like, there's no reason for you to put her in that situation if you really, truly believe that it's as creepy as it is. So,
yeah, it does seem like this is kind of Nancy's MO. Like, we've seen this before in, like, Clue in the Crumbling Wall when George loses her clothes and
Nancy just leaves her.
Nancy just leaves her. She just leaves her to fend for herself. And it's like, Nancy, your friend is naked in a like abandoned castle where there are bad guys like every other day. Like she's naked and trapped and like you're just like, I'll be right back, I swear, 5 minutes, and then doesn't come back. Like that is like
she's probably cold as well. Like it's just not.
It's like not only does like Nancy is a bad friend, but Nancy, it's like the call of mystery is more important for Nancy than anything else. And I say that, like, is this why we like Nancy though? Is because she is so single-minded? Can we excuse her being a bad friend? Because it's for the call of mystery, Corey. She has to investigate.
To a certain extent, but some of these things are just unreasonable.
I will say that I think the reason why she didn't want to leave Bess alone in the room was not necessarily because she thinks that Rick was this nefarious character, but because she just didn't trust Bess to be able to like handle herself well in that situation. You know what I mean? Like
that's even worse though. If it's not like I'm sketched out because this is I'm protecting her thing. This is like I'm embarrassed of how she behaves kind of thing.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not great in either situation. But my point is that I don't think that she thinks that Bess was in any physical danger. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that I'm glad it wasn't as creepy as it felt like when I was reading it. But.
Well, there are definitely other parts that stand out as being incredibly creepy to me also, particularly if we want to just go ahead and jump there.
Go ahead.
The end with the confrontation with Dwayne where let me just read it. Okay, so this is right after Dwayne has revealed himself in the control room. He says, "Well, hello, you two." Dwayne's voice boomed at them. He let out a monstrous laugh. "I only followed Lillian, but I've trapped both of you. How lucky. Congratulations. Your death scenes will look so lovely on videotape. A videotape for my personal viewing pleasure only."
Oh.
He's making a snuff film, is what he's doing. Sick.
I thought that was just kind of a metaphor because they're on a film set, but he's really doing this, isn't he?
He's literally trying to film their murder for his personal viewing pleasure. And he says that explicitly.
This man's deranged.
Yeah. So, obviously, there's lots of very problematic parts of this book. Namely, the creepy men in it. And yeah, maybe it's debatable how creepy some of them are being at certain times, but they're creepy. They just are creepy.
When Nancy first goes to, when she uses the fake name to go to Dwayne's office to snoop around while Bess distracts him, before Bess arrives, they're sitting there talking about, like, you know, why Nancy's in New York and how she knows Maddie and everything. And Dwayne gets up and locks the door to his office behind Nancy and is like, "So no one disturbs us."
Yikes!
Well, there's no receptionist. You have no other staff. You have no other clients. who's going to interrupt us? If, otherwise you just don't want Nancy to get out of the room easily. You want to trap her.
100%. I made a massive note about that too. Like, ew, like at that point, if a man ever locked me in a room with him, I'm getting the fuck out of there. Like, that is a bad situation. Like that is threatening behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It makes me worry about what would have happened if Nancy had been like, oh, actually, I gotta go now.
Mm-hmm. If she hadn't gone along.
Would he have attacked her? If Bess hadn't shown up, would something else have happened that Nancy wasn't planning for? Yeah.
Right. And it brings like a whole new light to what Maddie was saying about him like really enjoying giving advice to like new actresses in town.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a pattern of behavior for Dwayne? Does he take advantage of young girls coming to the city to try to make it?
Because he thinks they're naive. And
this is Nancy Drew time's up. This is Nancy Drew Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Except not really, because they don't really talk about it. So
no, they don't.
We just kind of excuse their creepy behavior. So I'm timesing up this book. I'm saying time's up on Nancy Drew. Stay tuned for danger.
Well, yeah, it's like what we were saying earlier. It's a lot darker, scarier, higher stakes of a mystery. So
yeah, and a lot more real. A lot more real life. I will say that a lot of it feels very dramatic for dramatic sake. You know what I mean? But like, the danger is much more real and realistic. Right. Like real situations, man, real things. So. And yeah, real guns, real gunshots, real violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a singed hole in Nancy's jacket. Just this far from hitting her.
Ugh. Always. How does she always escape? It feels like she's in so many dangerous situations that at one point she's got to get injured just a little bit at least.
Right.
And it's never happened.
Never so much as gone to a doctor's appointment for a checkup.
She's never even sprained her ankle. Oh, wait. She did, though. She sprained her ankle in Clue of the Leading Chimney, but only in the original version. Oh, remember, she climbs up the tree branch to, like, look over it across the fence. But I think only slightly, to be fair.
Right.
She slightly sprains her ankle in the fall, and she's fine. There's no repercussions for it. But
right.
And then they edit that part out in the rewrite. Oh, so funny. So yeah, I would love to see Nancy just like actually have to go to the hospital just one time. Obviously, I don't want Nancy to die, but
I want her to be treated for her concussions at least.
At least, yeah, and not powwowing. I want her to get some like medication,
Right. Have a doctor look her over, shine a flashlight in her eyes, see if she's...
Yeah, man. Oh, okay. Let's see, what else?
Oh, more on the Bess stuff. I do have a note about the time that Maddie comes over to Aunt Eloise's apartment and they'll have dinner, and Maddie is kind of warning Bess against, Rick's not a good guy for you and all this kind of stuff. Bess says, I can fix Rick. He just hasn't met the right girl yet. Brushes this off as though Bess is the girl to fix all of Rick's issues.
Mm-hmm. Ladies, you can't change him. Ladies, you can't change him. Oh, and do you really want to be in the business of fixing somebody? You don't.
No. You got enough of your own stuff to deal with. Why are you
live your life
doing stuff for him? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that like Bess is. I don't think it's a good idea for Bess to pursue Rick, but I think that Nancy should hop off the judgment train, is all I'm saying about that.
My biggest issue with it is just the potential age difference.
Yeah. Definitely creepy.
Yeah.
Definitely creepy. And I think it's even fair for Nancy to say that to Bess, to be like, look, Bess, I think this age gap is really inappropriate. And I think that this guy probably doesn't have your best interest at heart. And, I'm worried about you. But instead she's like, ugh, Bess. And she's like fed up with her about it. It's just not a great approach, Nancy.
You're still crying over that guy. Like,
mm-hmm.
If you're an 18-year-old and there's a man who's more than 1 or 2 years older than you who's telling you he loves you after like the second day of meeting you, he's in it for the wrong reasons, ladies. I'm sorry, but
yeah. And like, listen, like it's really enticing, especially like listen, some of us have been there, okay? Like older men, like it feels like they're singling you out because you're special. Like this older guy likes me, like it must be because I am different from my peers. It must be because I have something. I'm prettier, I'm better, I'm smarter, I'm more mature.
Right.
This is why he likes me. So it's fine. And he makes you feel special and that feels good, but it's not that. It is a pattern of behavior. And he's singling you out because in a way you are special, but because you are, what's the word? You are...
He sees you as easily
vulnerable.
manipulated. Yeah, you're vulnerable.
You're vulnerable.
He sees you as someone that might be easy to groom.
And trust me from someone who has been there. It's not a good situation and you should get out.
If this man can't find a woman his own age, huge red flag.
Huge red flag. Huge red flag. Huge red flag.
I know 18-year-olds can make their own decisions, but honestly, the age gap between like an 18-year-old and a 25-year-old is way, way, way larger than like a 25-year-old to a 35-year-old. You know, that's
even
at
like,
that age. It's just, yeah.
Thinking now, I'm years old, and thinking about dating someone who's even 5 years younger, like, is weird. It's super weird. And like, if you're in high school right now and you're listening to this, just think about, maybe you're a junior, a senior, think about how weird it would be and how awkward it would be for you to date a freshman. Or someone in middle school.
Right.
And now think about that. And now think about that as, you know, in reverse, right? So someone older than you thinking about dating you. If they don't think that's weird, there's something wrong with them. And that's been our advice corner for today.
What else here?
Can we talk about Eloise for a little bit?
Yes.
I feel like in this book, it's kind of like a non-character. Like, she doesn't really take up a big role, which I thought,
there to voice concern.
Yeah, well, she's kind of there to play the Hannah role, right? Like, she takes care of Nancy and she offers her food, even though it's a little bit different because we're not in the 1950s, right? She takes her out to eat in the city and stuff, and she's also, there to express like motherly concern for her. At one point she says, you're my only brother's only daughter. And which I thought was a weird way to say that. Like, isn't she your only niece? Just say she's your only niece.
Right.
But whatever. She's there to express concern for Nancy, but she doesn't have that big of a role. And I was really disappointed by that. I think Eloise is a really great opportunity to show us a strong female character, to show us basically what a grown-up Nancy would be.
Yeah.
And we don't really get that. We did get a really interesting physical description of her at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
That I thought. She says, Nancy cried out, waving to her aunt, who was coming out the front door. Tall and elegant, Eloise Drew was a female version of Nancy's father, Carson. They had the same lustrous brown hair and aristocratic features.
Oh.
So the class stuff is still here, too. It's just maybe a little bit more hidden.
I mean, if you're living in New York City in an apartment building with famous TV stars, you probably have a little bit of money.
But we also talk about in the computer game, it's talked about how because Secrets Can Kill is number 1 and Stay Tuned for Danger is number 2, immediately in that game, we talk about how Nancy didn't even go home after the trip to Florida. She went straight to her aunt's apartment in New York.
Right, because we get the phone call with Ned, and he's like, hey, are you still in Florida? And she's like, no, actually, I'm in New York City.
Yeah, but so she was in Secrets Can Kill, she was in her aunt's home in Florida. She's in her Aunt Eloise's house in Florida. So her Aunt Eloise owns a house in Florida and an apartment in New York City. That's expensive. And a nice apartment, it seems like. She has a full-out guest room with 2 double beds for Nancy and Bess. What kind of space what kind of person in New York has a guest room
Right.
at all? But also like enough space for multiple beds and
yeah. Sound like they have their own bathroom and everything. So
in the game, it's a brownstone.
Yeah, it's massive.
So
we can even see that there's a dining room, which like having a dining room in New York City.
Yeah.
Should we just talk about the game really quick?
Yeah. We're already talking about it. We might as well.
So let's talk about the differences, I guess, between the book and the game. Obviously, the game doesn't have characters like Aunt Eloise or Bess because saving on animation, I would assume. So the storyline is a little bit more streamlined with that. We do have Dwayne Casper instead of Dwayne Powers for the game.
We have Light of Our Love instead of Danner's Dream. We have like a few less incidents. Like we don't get the acid in this situation.
In the book, Nancy is the hero for saving Rick from the falling light, but she doesn't really do anything with the bomb. She's just kind of there in the aftermath of the bomb, but it's flip-flopped. In the game, Nancy is just kind of an observer for the light situation, but she actually diffuses the bomb and is the hero for that in the game. I guess they just wanted to switch it for the purpose of a puzzle, but I don't know.
Can we talk about that puzzle for a minute too? Because I also replayed that recently because I was reading this because I just had to. Also, it took me longer to install the game than to play the game.
Really?
It took me like 5 hours to figure out how to get the game installed.
Oh, no.
And I finished it in like 2. So we were talking about the bomb puzzle. And every single time, I know that there is something I'm supposed to be looking for that tells me the order of the wires to cut. But every time I forget about it until the door to the dressing room creaks open and I'm like, God damn it, it's the fucking bomb. And I forgot to look for where I'm supposed to read the colors.
What was it, by the way? I never did figure it out.
I looked it up because I was
random wires.
Every time that's what I do. Every time I'm like, nope. Okay, this one, then nope. This one, okay. It takes me 4 times to get it. And it's actually supposed to be in Maddie's script. There's like different, like if you read through it, there's like the yellow ball and then the blue chair or something like that. There's like colors in order. And like Maddie puts like question marks she's confused about for some reason.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
It was actually really fun playing the game like while I was in the process of reading the book, because anytime I would get stuck in the game, I would just go read the book and find out what happened next and then be like, oh, that's what I need to do in the game. Okay. And so I would go back to the game.
That's so smart. I remember I got stuck in the spot where everybody gets stuck, where you cannot, for whatever reason, you've already gotten the fake bomb, but you're just waiting on a phone call from Lillian.
Oh, yeah. I got stuck there as well.
And it's just like me going back to this place and being back to this place and be like, what is it that I have not clicked on yet that won't trigger this freaking phone call? And it turns out it was the check in Dwayne's briefcase. I hadn't clicked on that. So I didn't see that Maddie had loaned him $5,000, which is like irrelevant.
Right. That's really funny. It's so weird. It's so precise if you have to have clicked on X, Y, and Z before it'll unlock this. And it's just not as intuitive as some of the newer games.
Right. Yeah. You just have to do things in a certain order in this game and you can't deviate from that. And there's even a way, I know because I've done it before, there's a way for you to get stuck and not be able to progress any farther in the game. You would actually have to start the game entirely over if you like missed this thing. I think it has to do with like when you go to the set, I think it might be the bomb. It's like if you don't do something before you get like locked out of the set, you can't get back in.
Oh yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. This almost happened to me, but I figured out a way around it. So whenever you go to disarm the bomb, you have to do it at nighttime, obviously, because you can't go in because the set is closed down to visitors. So you have to go in at night to do it. But in order to disarm the bomb, you have to get the wire cutters from the prop room,
right? Which
you can't get into past a certain time. So what you do is you go to the set like during the day and then you just wait until after 6 p.m. and then you can go sneak into the prop room, because during the day Millie's there and she just kicks you out of the room anytime you try to go in. So I just had to like let the game run for like 2 hours until it got to 6 p.m. in the game.
That's hilarious. Oh man.
So if you get stuck, try that. Just wait around in the studio. Do not leave during the day because otherwise you can't get back into the prop room. But that will let you do it.
What a great tip! What a great tip, Corey.
Well, I found it on Game Boomers, so
cool.
I didn't come up with that myself. I was desperate. I was like, please don't tell me I made the fatal error. I'd have to start all over again, but it was okay. So,
well, thank you, Game Boomers. Game Boomer is always there in clutch, isn't it? I love their Nancy Drew walkthroughs.
Oh yeah.
Listen, I like the Nancy Drew games, and I do enjoy the puzzles on Nancy Drew games, but sometimes you just don't want to do one of them.
Too tedious. Sometimes
you're like, I don't like this, especially whenever you've played them over and over again, as some of us are wont to do. So, at a certain point, there comes a time and place for a walkthrough, and God bless you, Game Boomers. You make great ones.
Oh, yes. I'm not ashamed to say that I use walkthroughs a lot. So. But another big difference between the book and the game, the prop master and the prop room.
Yes! Millie Strathorn, as she is called in the game, the computer game, who is really honestly the best part of the computer game for me. Mm-hmm. Like, quintessentially, she is my favorite character, and she might be like one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite, Nancy Drew PC game character of all time.
Really?
I just think that she is so funny. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know if this was it's just like something from my childhood that is just like deep in my core. Like, her advice to Nancy of don't take any wooden nickels, young lady, is my favorite line. And honestly, that advice is advice that I remember in like my everyday life, in my day-to-day life. Don't take any wooden nickels. And I just find it so just such a great reminder of you should be suspicious of people sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I just really appreciate Millie Strathorn as a character. And also, I think I see a little bit of myself in Millie Strathorn, in that if I were like that might be like my dream job, is to be like, not be a prop master on a set, but to be specifically an old woman prop master who is just kind of eccentric and people just kind of have to do what she says because she actually secretly owns the company. That's my dream life. So I just want to be her,
Yeah. I'm not sure how they came up with this character because there's nothing like her in the book. We have the old man prop master, but he's not, secretly the owner of the company or anything. I don't know how HerInteractive came up with her, but I'm very glad that they did.
Well,
is it a reference to Millie Benson?
It's a reference to Mildred
Ward
Benson. Yeah.
Her nickname was Millie. So I was wondering if that was it, but the last name obviously is different. So I wasn't sure.
If you look at the picture of her, the framed portrait of her in the lobby, underneath it says Mildred B. Strathorn.
Oh, I love that. So Strathorn must be a play on Stratemeyer then.
Yeah.
Another fun little Easter egg. This game has a ton of fun Easter eggs, by the way. If you go into that prop room, you can find a reference to pretty much every book in the Nancy Drew Mystery Series, the original ones. And then what ends up being pretty much references to future games as well, because so many of the books ended up being relevant. So like clue of the whistling bagpipes, obviously we have the game in Scotland, so we have like a set of bagpipes in the prop room. We have a letter from Redgate Farm telling us all about the Blenheim nursery and things like that, or I'm not sure specifically what it was, but
I wrote that down too. It's oh wait, no, I don't actually think I must have written it down in my game notebook. Hold on one second.
Oh, yeah. Did you find it?
Yes, sorry. So I have a separate notebook for when I play the Nancy Drew games for my notes. I didn't write it down.
That's okay.
Dang it. Oh, but I did laugh. In the computer game, there are these like scripts that Maddie leaves around or Rick leaves around. So they're like learning their lines or whatever. And a title of an episode for Light of Our Love that was on the script is Milk Will Spill, Love Will Vanish.
What?
And I just appreciated that so much.
I didn't catch that. That's funny.
But also a difference in the computer game is that Maddie is actually renting Aunt Eloise's apartment in New York.
Right. And in the book, they're neighbors. So
right. Yeah.
I guess Aunt Eloise is in Florida for this game still.
Well, you know what? Maybe that is how Aunt Eloise makes her money. Maybe she manages rental properties and this is her house in New York, but she's renting it out. And so I can only imagine the amount of money you would get from managing a New York City rental property.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine.
I've been secretly wishing and hoping for a Stay Tuned for Danger remaster for years now. I don't think it's going to happen. I think HerInteractive has confirmed that is not in their plans at any point for the future, but they did such a good job updating Secrets Can Kill and getting rid of some of the, not fatal errors in the game, but things where you can get stuck and then you get stuck in the game with no way to complete it. Remove that little error from this game, things like that. But yeah. Maybe even update the Dwayne model to look more like Ransom of the Seven Ships, because he does look quite different in that game.
Yeah.
Make it translate a little bit more, because in that game you're supposed to recognize him and you don't until he's like, I'm really Dwayne Powers. And but anyway, sorry.
Yeah. I think that is such a great point. This book, because I mean, Secrets Can Kill is a great game, and I'm excited to see if it is also a great book. But I think just the concept of Stay Tuned for Danger is such a great one. Like, it's such an interesting premise to like be on a soap set and, kind of deal with like this soap opera world and the difference between, the soap opera and reality, and also like really flirty stars and romance drama. Like, it's just such a great, compelling story. And I think a little bit more compelling than like going into a high school or like a drug dealing situation. I don't know. Right. I just don't find that interesting. But this is so much more, I think, compelling in my opinion. So I think it would make an absolutely great game to remaster, because it would be so cool to see a more modern interpretation of that.
I am glad that the gun from the end scene did not make it into the game. Of course, there was a gun in the original game of Secrets Can Kill, and then that got edited out for the remastered version.
I love that part of the original Secrets Can Kill game, though, where he drops the gun and you have to grab it really quick. I love that part because it is such an anxiety. Sorry, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't played the original Secrets Can Kill. But it is such a like high anxiety moment that like every time I would play that, I'd be like, get it. And it just makes for such a great build up at the end, such a great peak of the game.
Just a good climax. Yeah. They discontinued Stay Tuned for Danger, the game, in like a year after they released the remastered Secrets Can Kill. So I was like, yes, the remaster is coming. Literally 10 years on from that now, and nothing, but that's okay. I can hope in my mind and think about how I would remaster it if it were a remastered game.
I saw that hilarious meme that Arglefump tweeted the other day that was like, it's that meme of, oh, you're such a big fan of this, we'll name these 3 things or whatever. And it was, oh, you're such a Nancy Drew computer game fan, we'll name like 3 Nancy Drew games produced in the last 5 years. And it's just Midnight in Salem. That was on me. I set the bar too low.
Good one, Arglefump. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a whole episode on HerInteractive and the games later on. We will do that at some point, I'm sure, but we'll save it for today.
Yeah, we will. Oh, we have to talk about the dinner scene. So, where Maddie comes over for dinner.
Oh, yeah.
And they're making dinner in the apartment. Can I just say how far the mighty have fallen? Because Nancy is supposed to be this like amazing cook, amazing baker. Throughout the mystery stories, we get so many scenes of them talking about food and recipes, and Nancy baking a cake, and Nancy's famous for her cake and whatever. Yeah. And in this dinner scene in Stay Tuned for Danger, Nancy is microwaving a baked potato. Nancy microwaves a potato. Nancy puts a potato in the microwave. Now listen, I'm not against a microwaved potato. Like, sometimes it's easy, it's fast, you just want to get to your dinner or whatever. But they're making like this big deal out of this dinner, and Eloise is like, oh, I'm making my marinated steak. And Maddie's like, ooh, can I stay for dinner? And she's like, yeah, Nancy puts an extra potato in the microwave. What?
I forgot about that.
Okay. And it's not hard to bake a potato in the oven.
No, in fact, it's probably easier.
It
Probably more thorough that way. You know that it's completely cooked, whereas a microwave.
Well, no, see, that's the thing is I know that it's a trick to like partially microwave your potatoes before putting them in the oven so that they bake faster.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I guess if we could be generous and say that that's what Nancy is doing, but there's no mention of putting it in the oven. And listen, a microwave potato is not exactly the height of culinary excellence here. The taste of this baked potato skin alone from a microwave, it's like eating soggy paper. Like, if you want any kind of good baked potato, you have to put it in the oven. You have to cover it and stuff, and salt, pepper, and oil, and
Oh, well.
That's my biggest critique of this book. It's just that, like, come on, Nancy, don't microwave a potato. Not for guests, not for company.
Hey, if that's your biggest critique, it's a pretty good book in that case then. So.
It's true. There is certainly a lot worse that I've said about other books. Let's see what else. Oh, yeah, Ned jokes that Nancy calling twice in a week means she's in love.
We do see Ned and Nancy tell each other that they love each other a lot in the game, which is funny because we have a whole thing about it in Sea of Darkness about how it's their first time saying I love you, which is just easily disproven.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you remember in Sea of Darkness where he's like, Nancy, I have something important to give you for your anniversary gift? And she's like, well, what is it? And he's like, oh, I was going to tell you something in person, but I guess I'll tell you now. I love you, Nancy Drew. And she's like,
you're totally right.
And you get to choose whether or not you say it back for the first time. It's like, why is this making a big deal out of it? Like, you haven't said it since game 2 now. So,
can I just ask you, which one did you choose when you play it? Do you say, I love you back? Or
I think I alternate between the two of them.
Yeah.
So I play it so often that
same. Sea of Darkness is a great game too.
Oh, it's excellent.
Yeah. Anyway, no, let me find it. Let me find it in the book because I would like to read it in the book too. Yeah, I love you, she said with a laugh. But thanks for trying to be funny. Because he says, what's going on, Nancy? Could this be true love? And she says, I love you.
Aww. Which one is it that you say they break up in? Is that like the next one?
Oh, that would be hilarious if it was. It is number 8. So that's before this one.
Okay, so they have reconciled at this point.
So we should talk about their portrayal of crazy fans in this book.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's interesting.
You can tell that this is the 80s, definitely, from how they treat mental health and mental illness.
100%. There's a lot of talk about quote-unquote crazy fans. And at the beginning, when we see the tour going through and we hear them talking about the soap opera show and Rick's character Rory. And later when the fan tries to throw Rick off the tour boat in the Hudson River, it's very much and it's like, oh, don't worry, that guy was just disturbed, like he was just crazy and he's actually just left from a mental hospital. And it's just a little bit like, what's the right word? I don't even know how to describe this with the right word. Like perfunctory. Well, definitely stigmatizing, but just like the way they talk about it is just like, oh, don't worry, he's just crazy. He's just crazy. And it's like, well, I mean, that's not really fair. There's all types of mental illness and none of them make you just crazy. They all have their own symptoms and their own manifestations. So it is not fair to just write someone off as being crazy.
Yeah, even the police are they're condescending to this man. They say, okay, fella, let's go. The police officer said, leading the man to the patrol car. You'll feel a lot better after a nice long rest.
And right after he exclaims, I killed Rory Danner, or whatever, he was filth. The police officer said, sure, you can tell the doctor all about it. Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, I was also interested how few chapters there are. I think there's only 17 chapters, so it was a little bit shorter of a book. I thought that these would be a bit longer, but it's okay.
No, I think that's why I love these so much, is because they're really, I mean, they're such quick reads in a way that, like, I mean, the Nancy Drew mystery stories are quick reads also, but these feel just like so fast. They're technically shorter too, but they seem to be much more sensational, or at least this one seems to be more sensational, and so it just goes so fast to read. So it's really fun, and it's a fun, it's a fun little mystery, and the stakes are high. So I feel like they do a really good job of like replicating what the Nancy Drew mystery stories were supposed to be in that time period, and the 40s and 50s, for a modern audience. Right. So I really enjoy these, and I just think they're great.
They are great. Yeah. Shorter in a good way as well. Like it's a lot more succinct of a mystery. You don't have random, like, what is Nancy doing? This isn't relevant. It all adds up to the mystery. It all makes it a little bit richer in the story.
Yeah, very much so. And we get a lot more like characters are more fleshed out, which is impressive for it being shorter. We get more subtext between people than I think that we get in the mystery stories, or at least more subtext that I understand. Because I feel like a lot of that is just lost in translation. Like I'm just
the decades,
a modern reader who doesn't understand what some 50s,
what they were implying,
what they were talking about sometimes. Whereas in this, it's a lot more clear, the relationships that they have with each other, and it's just more interesting to read and easier to understand for me. So I love it. Also, on the cover, we didn't talk about the cover. There is so you can see it's like a visionary. So we get a visionary situation where I guess Nancy is in front, looking off to the side, somewhat shocked or concerned,
like gasping a little bit.
Yeah. And this, I guess, is supposed to be Rick Arlen behind her, blonde haired, very tan. Okay, when you look at this picture of him, though, he definitely could pass for 40.
Oh yeah, he looks much older in this photo.
But my favorite part of the cover is in the back, in the very background. You see Nancy, I guess, pushing Rick out of the way of the falling stage light, and it's just such a great action sequence, and I just love to imagine Nancy doing that. So I really appreciate that illustration.
I like this cover. It's very 80s. You can tell, like the colors are just very bright. They're just very bright color. Yeah, the clothes are very 80s.
The shoulder pads, the oversized jackets, Nancy's long, just past the knees skirt, and her little white Keds. Yeah, it's great. It's really great. I do love the colors. I love it's kind of, you know what? It's kind of pink and blue.
It's kind of our colors, isn't it?
Kind of our colors. Yeah, love it.
Almost
there
purpley,
are, yeah.
It is blue in some parts. Yeah. But anyway.
So there are no illustrations in the Nancy Drew files inside of it, as opposed to the Nancy Drew mysteries. It's just text, no illustrations, which I think is fine, because I assume it's supposed to be for a little bit more of an older audience. Right. But I don't know. I would love an illustration. So I definitely wouldn't mind that if that was something that they wanted to include. And definitely, if we ever do cover like the Nancy Drew diaries, or maybe some of the Nancy Drews that are aimed at a younger audience, I'd be really excited to see those and what those look like. Okay.
What a good one. I'm so happy that we finally settled on a file to start with, and this is such a good one to start with.
It is. It's great. Do you want to give it a score?
I want to give it 5 out of 5 flashlights. I'm going to give it a 4. I'm docking it 1 for how creepy Rick and Dwayne are.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I give it a 4 out of 5 as well. It's just creepy. And it would be one thing if they called that out, you know what I mean? And made you as the reader understand, like, these are creepy men and we don't like them. But they don't do that. They kind of just like accept their behavior as normal or expected in some way, even if it is not good behavior. It's not called out as being creepy and sexist. It's called out as being creepy because Dwayne is trying to murder people, which is
Right.
fair, you know,
Yeah.
and he is trying to murder people, and that is bad. But it also needs to be explained as being he hates women,
Right.
which they don't do. So yeah, 4 out of 5 flashlights. But overall, really fun book, really fun to read, really fast, really interesting. Cool premise. I love it.
If you haven't played the game, I would recommend it. It's so good, so true to this story.
If you can figure out how to get it installed on your computer, because man,
I know you regular Drews out there, you already have a copy though. I know most of you do.
Yeah.
Do you want to score the game as well?
Oh,
It's kind of hard to
that's
score
so
the game.
hard. Yeah. I love the game for all of the hidden messages, all the like random codes everywhere, because that is 100% like my favorite thing is like decoding messages. And so just having those littered throughout the game and being like, ooh, what does that say? And some of them are important to the game and some of them aren't important to the game. And so I just think it's a really good balance. They do a really good job of like making the setting of the game. They do a good job of really interspersing like little hidden clues throughout about the mystery, not just the references to other games and stuff, but like little secret hints to the player of the game about how to solve the mystery or who the bad guy is or whatever. And I love that. I think that's such a great part of the game. And they don't really do that in any of the other Nancy Drew games as much. Do it in Secrets Can Kill a little bit, but once you start getting into the later ones, they don't do it anymore. And I miss that. I thought that was such a great addition.
It is. It's a different vibe than what you feel from the most recent games. So
yeah, I think for the nostalgia alone, I would have to give it 4 out of 5 flashlights, because I just remember like going to the public library and checking out this game with my sister and then going home and playing it all weekend. And it's just such a nostalgic feel. And even though, it's clunky when you try to go back and play it, and trying to install it is a nightmare. And sometimes you get stuck and you have to like keep doing things and looking everywhere. I just
talking to every single suspect between every single action.
Calling everybody 5 times. They don't have anything new to say. And you're like, what am I missing? But like overall, it's just such a fun experience to replay that and to remember our youth, you know? Yeah.
Oh, do we want to say our next one?
Yes. Okay, so next time we are going to be covering, another drum roll. 2 Points to Murder, number 8. I don't know anything about the plot of this, except for the fact that it's the first time that Ned and Nancy break up. So I am very excited to see that and to feel that drama. Because I think I said in an earlier episode that I'm actually not a Ned and Nancy shipper. While I appreciate their love for each other, I think Nancy is destined for greatness and needs to leave old Ned Nickerson in River Heights.
And all men behind.
Maybe all men.
Herself. Yeah. This isn't necessarily a Francie endorsement. It's just not a Ned and Nancy endorsement.
Exactly. So I'm really excited to read that and talk about that with all y'all.
So we'll see you then.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Regular Nancy Drew. Email us at regularnancydrew@gmail.com.
If you liked this episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
You can also follow us on Instagram at Regular Nancy Drew and Twitter at RegularND.
You can also support us on Patreon. Patrons at the $1 level receive early access to each episode as well as weekly bonus content.
And to all you regular Drews out there,
thanks for listening. It is really well written. So whoever Carolyn